It started with 43 seconds of raw footage that sent shockwaves through every major network in America. Just 43 seconds. No fancy editing, no special effects. It's just a single moment caught live on TV. Something so real that 3 of the biggest studios tried to bury it. But someone leaked it anyway. Once people saw it, there was no way to unsee it. This wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a celebrity meltdown or a viral prank. It was something deeper, something raw. And it all started with a talk show set. Bright lights, a shiny fake smile, and a plan to humiliate someone in front of millions of people. That someone was Jonathan Roumie. You might know Jonathan as the actor who plays Jesus in The Chosen. Millions of people around the world had watched him perform. His face was familiar, his voice calm. But behind that calm was a storm few people knew about. Hollywood looked at Jonathan and saw another actor riding the wave of Christian popularity. What they didn't see was the man behind the camera, the man who didn't care about fame, the man who still lived in a worn-down apartment in Chicago, with bare walls, chipped floors, and a single wooden crucifix his grandmother carved by hand. Next to that crucifix was a faded photo of his father, a man who died still wondering if his son would ever amount to anything. Jonathan didn't live the Hollywood life. He didn't care about it. His days weren't spent at red carpets or poolside parties. Most mornings, he was on his knees praying the same simple prayer he'd been whispering since he was 8 years old. Nothing fancy. Just desperate faith from a man who knew what it felt like to be broken. Then came the message that changed everything. His phone buzzed early that morning with a text from someone at a major network. "Ellen wants you on the show Thursday." Weren't inviting him for fun or good press. The topic said it all. Hollywood's holy hypocrites. They wanted Jonathan to be the poster boy for fake religion and show business. The plan was to mock him, tear him apart, and make his faith look like nothing more than a money-making act. Jonathan stared at that message for a long time. He knew what it meant. He knew what it could cost him. He also knew why they wanted him. Specifically, he wasn't just an actor anymore. He had become a symbol of something Hollywood didn't understand: faith that wasn't for sale. Without saying a word, he looked up at the crucifix on the wall. His father's eyes stared back at him from the photo beside it. Jonathan picked up his phone, opened the message, typed a single word. Yes. What Jonathan didn't know yet was that another phone call was coming, one that would turn that TV interview into more than just awkward TV, one that would turn this whole thing into a battle between fake fame and real faith. And the person who would spark it all wasn't a celebrity, wasn't a critic, wasn't even from Hollywood. It was a little girl from a hospital bed in Memphis. And she was about to change everything. The lights in the studio were bright, too. Bright. Everything looked polished and perfect, like a postcard. The audience was dressed up, the stage spotless, cameras gliding like silent machines. It all felt controlled, smooth, exactly how daytime TV was supposed to be. But underneath, that shine was something fake. Even the audience could feel it, though they didn't know why yet. They clapped on cue. They smiled when they were told to. But something felt different today. They didn't know they were about to witness something they'd never forget. Jonathan Roumie sat in the guest chair under those hot lights. Not in some $1,000 designer suit, but in his father's old navy blazer, the one with a tear near the elbow. His hair was slightly messy, his shoes scuffed. He didn't fit the set. Honestly, he didn't care. He wasn't here for image. Yes. He was here for truth. Ellen stepped forward with that famous smile, the same one that had helped launch careers, sell brands, and build an empire. To most people watching, it looked warm, fun, harmless. But Jonathan could see through it, could feel it, that edge, that sharpness, hiding behind the grin. She was here to tear him apart, and then she said, it loud enough for the cameras to catch, "Jonathan, let's be honest. You're just an actor playing dress up as God. Don't you think it's time to stop fooling these people and admit this is just a money game?" The audience laughed, but it wasn't real laughter. It was nervous, forced, the kind of laugh you make when you don't know what else to do. People shifted in their seats, clapping a little, glancing around, unsure of how they were supposed to feel. It wasn't funny. It was uncomfortable. Jonathan didn't move, didn't flinch. He looked at Ellen calmly, like someone who had been waiting his whole life for this moment. And then, steady and clear, he spoke. Ellen, I've never told anyone I'm God. What I have told them is that knowing God saved my life. And if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe we should ask ourselves why. That answer didn't make Ellen laugh. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. She leaned forward again, ready for the next swing. Come on, Jonathan. I don't sit here on national TV and tell me you believe in talking snakes and walking on water. It's 2024. You're smarter than that. This time, the audience didn't laugh. They shifted uncomfortably again. Some crossed their arms. Some stared at the floor. You could hear the tension growing, like the slow build of a storm about to break. Jonathan didn't argue. He didn't crack jokes. He didn't roll his eyes like most Hollywood guests would. Instead, he lowered his voice, making the whole room lean in to hear him. Ellen, he said, I believe in a God who can turn water into wine. Who can heal the blind? Who can raise the dead? But more than that, I believe in a God who can take a broken, addicted suicidal actor from New York and turn him into someone worth loving. Silence. That wasn't the kind of answer Ellen wanted. It was raw. It was real. And it made her look small. But Ellen didn't build her career by backing down. She smiled again, but this time it didn't reach her eyes. She was ready to go for the kill. Funny, isn't it? She said with a soft laugh, how God always seems to bless people right when they get famous. The Chosen made over $400 million. Your face is everywhere, and you expect people to believe that's just faith? Or maybe it's just a really good business plan. That one landed, the audience murmured. Some nodded. It was a sharp trap. The same one that had taken down so many celebrities before him. Fame mixed with faith. People don't like that. Smell fake, even if it's real. Jonathan sat still. But then, slowly, almost too slowly to notice, he reached into his inside pocket. The whole room froze. Even the cameras seemed to stop moving for a second. Out came a folded piece of paper. Worn around the edges like it had been opened and closed 100 times, Jonathan held it up, unfolded it carefully, then did something nobody expected. This, he said, holding it toward the nearest camera, is my bank statement from last month. The audience leaned forward as if pulled by a string. Smile twitched. The number on that statement wasn't millions, wasn't even thousands. It was $1,247.47. That's all he had. That's all he needed. I give away everything except what I need to survive, he said, his voice steady. Always have. The mansion you mentioned? Never seen it. I live in the same apartment I've had for 8 years. I drive the same old car I drove when I was broke because I never want to forget what rock bottom looks like. Nobody moved. Even the camera operators stood still, headphones pressed to their ears, stunned by what they were seeing. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't how it was planned. Ellen stared at him, her mouth just slightly open. This wasn't in the research her team had done. This wasn't the script she expected to follow. What she didn't realize yet, what nobody in that room realized yet, was that Jonathan wasn't there to defend himself. He was there to tell the truth even, if it cost him everything, and the real battle hadn't even started yet. Jonathan didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. Instead, he slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. No one expected that. Ellen blinked, confused. The audience stared, waiting. Then Jonathan held the phone up to his mic and pressed the speaker button. Sarah, he said softly, are you watching? For a few seconds, nothing, just silence. And then a tiny voice, weak but clear, broke through the studio speakers. Hi, Mr. Jonathan. I'm watching. Mommy's crying. The entire room froze. It didn't feel like a TV show anymore. It felt like someone had opened a door to another world. A world where everything fake suddenly felt small, and everything real became impossible to ignore. The sound of that small, sick child's voice sucked all the energy out of the room, like someone had punched the air right out of their lungs. Jonathan smiled, but his eyes were wet. Remember what we talked about, Sarah? About how sometimes people don't understand the things we believe? The girl sniffled. Yeah. You said some people laugh because they're scared. That's right, Jonathan whispered. His eyes locked on Ellen now. Even grown-ups get scared sometimes. Ellen didn't move. She was frozen, hands tight around the edges of her chair. The mask she wore every day on TV was cracking in real time, and everyone could see it. For years, she had been the one in control, making people laugh, breaking them down, spinning headlines. But not today. Today, she was face to face with something no joke could fix. Jonathan's voice grew firmer. Len, he said softly, you just mocked her faith. You just told a dying 8-year-old girl that what gives her hope is a joke. Weight of that sentence hit the room like a hammer. Nobody clapped. Nobody coughed. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. You could almost hear hearts beating. And then Jonathan delivered the line that broke Ellen in two. If you can't say it to her, then why do you feel brave saying it to me? Silence. Not TV silence. Real, heavy, painful silence. Ellen's hands were shaking now, her fingers, twitching like she didn't know whether to run, or speak, or scream. For a second, she opened her mouth like she was about to say something clever, something sharp, but nothing came out. She swallowed hard and tried again. This is emotional. Blackmail, she finally spat. You're using a sick child to make me look bad? It's not faith. That's manipulation. The audience didn't believe her. You could feel it. Murmurs rolled through the crowd like soft thunder. A woman in the second row wiped tears from her eyes. A man near the front crossed his arms, jaw clenched. Ellen was losing them, and she knew it. Jonathan didn't blink. He lifted his phone a little closer to his mic. Sarah. Do you want to say something to Ellen? For a second, it felt like the whole world leaned in to hear. Tell her. Sarah's voice cracked. Tell her I pray for her too, because Jesus told us to pray for people who are mean to us. And, I think, maybe she's just scared. Like I was. You could hear the sound of someone gasping in the back row. It wasn't staged. It wasn't planned. It was just a raw human reaction to a moment too heavy for words. Ellen's face went pale. Not embarrassed, pale, terrified. Pale. It wasn't about the cameras anymore. It wasn't about TV ratings or winning an argument. She was exposed. For the first time in years, maybe the first time ever on live television, Ellen DeGeneres was not the strongest person in the room. Tears started rolling down her face. Not. In slow, graceful drops like in the movies, but messy, streaking lines of mascara that ruined her carefully controlled image. She was breaking right there in front of 20 million people, and nobody could stop it. Not the producer screaming in her earpiece, not the director signaling for a commercial, not even herself. Jonathan sat still, watching, steady as a mountain. His voice softened, not mocking, not angry, just full of something Ellen hadn't seen in a long time. Mercy, she's 8, Jonathan said. And she just showed you more kindness than you've probably felt in years. No one moved. No one breathed. This wasn't just TV anymore. It was something bigger. The audience knew it. Ellen knew it. Jonathan knew it. And somewhere, lying, in a hospital bed in Memphis, a little girl named Sarah knew it too. Ellen tried to speak, but no words came out. What was she supposed to say to that? That she didn't deserve kindness? That she didn't believe in second chances? That an 8-year-old child fighting for her life was wrong to pray for someone like her? There was nothing left to say. This was no longer a TV interview. It was a mirror. And for the first time, Ellen was seeing her own reflection clearly. Not the polished, perfect version the world saw, but the broken, scared person underneath all the fame and laughter. In that moment, the entire audience shifted. They weren't with the famous talk show host anymore. They were with the little girl. They were with the man who sat calmly in a torn blazer, holding the truth like a quiet flame.
Ow.
They were with something real, and none of them could go back to pretending. For Ellen, the fall wasn't loud. It was silent. And it was complete. Ellen couldn't hold it together anymore. The words that finally slipped from her mouth weren't clever or sharp. They were broken, soft, almost like a child, admitting something they've hidden for too long. I don't know how to stop pretending, she whispered through shaky breaths. I don't even know who I am without the cameras, without the jokes. I've been performing my whole life because if I didn't, I was afraid no one would stay. It wasn't a TV moment. It was too real for that. It was the kind of truth that leaves a room completely still. Ellen sat there, makeup streaked, voice shaking, finally showing everyone not just the world, but herself what was underneath the polished surface. Fear, loneliness, exhaustion, and for once, she wasn't hiding anymore. Jonathan didn't jump in with some big speech. He didn't try to fix her with words. Instead, he slowly rolled up the sleeves of his blazer, revealing scars running up both of his arms, old, faded, but still there. The kind of scars that only come from a person who's stood on the edge and almost given up. I've been exactly where you are, he said gently, successful on the outside, empty on the inside. These scars, they're from the night I tried to leave it all behind. But God didn't let me. He specializes in taking broken things and making them beautiful. For the first time that afternoon, Ellen looked at him like she was seeing him clearly, not as a guest, not as an actor, but as a person who knew her pain better than anyone else in that room. Her voice cracked, barely louder than a whisper. How do you have that kind of faith? How do I even start? Jonathan didn't hesitate. You start by being honest with God the way you just were with me, without waiting for cameras. Without caring what the world might say, Ellen stood up from her chair, walked around the desk, and knelt down on the floor beside him. No producers told her to, no cue cards. It's just a broken person reaching for something real. Jonathan knelt too. He gently took her hands in his, steady and kind. God, Jonathan whispered. She's tired. She's tired of hiding, tired of pretending. Would you show her what you showed me? That she's loved, not for being perfect, but for being real. It wasn't a performance. It was no script, no applause, sign flashing in the background. It was just one hurting soul asking for help from something bigger than both of them. Ellen's sobs echoed through the silent studio when a million people watched it live. And for once, nobody cared about celebrity gossip or clickbait drama. They saw something they didn't even realize they'd been starving for. Honesty. When the show ended, there was no goodbye, no music, no signature Ellen dance. Just Ellen, still sitting on the floor, holding Jonathan's hand like a lifeline. The footage hit 500 million views in just days, not because it was shocking, but because it was true. Real moments are rare, and this one cut deeper than anyone expected. Headlines didn't call it a breakdown. They called it what it was, a breakthrough. 3 days later, Ellen announced she was stepping away from television. Not with PR statements or fancy videos, just a simple message filmed from her living room. I spent my whole career trying to make people laugh, she said, voice soft but steady. But Jonathan taught me that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let people see you cry. And then quietly, she disappeared from the screen, but she didn't disappear from life. Months later, a small video surfaced not from a major network, but from someone's phone in a children's hospital in Memphis. There, in a small playroom filled with coloring books and stuffed animals, sat Jonathan and Ellen, reading to kids going through chemotherapy. No cameras, no spotlight, just two people who had been broken, learning to love others who were broken. 2. At the very end of the video, a little bald girl with wide eyes looked into the lens and smiled. Hi everyone, it's Sarah. I'm still here. I'm still praying for all of you. Her doctors called it medically impossible. Her chart used the word unexplainable. But Sarah just shrugged and smiled. I told you, Jesus loves broken people most. Now that moment didn't break the internet, it healed it. And for the first time in a long time, people stopped scrolling and just sat in silence, thinking about what mattered most. Not fame, not money, just hope. And the kind of love that doesn't care how broken you are.